It was late, far later than I had planned to be out. The city streets were empty, washed in a dull orange glow from flickering lamps. I was walking back when I saw it. A train station I didn't even know existed. The sign above the gate was rusted, the letters almost unreadable, but I could make out one word: midnight. Intrigued, I stepped closer, half expecting the wrought iron gates to bar my way, but they didn't. The chain hanging from the latch swung listlessly, making a sad clink as it brushed against the bars. Curiosity warred with common sense, and curiosity won. The platform was deserted, the tracks long and straight disappearing into the blackness beyond, yet I felt drawn toward it. The silence was heavy, pressing against my skin. That's when I heard it, the distant rumble of a train, at first faint, then growing louder. My heart skipped as a black iron train rolled into the station, its whistle cutting through the night. But something was wrong. The train was ancient, the kind you'd see in old photographs, steam hissing from its sides. Still, curiosity overpowered caution. The doors slid open without a sound, and though no one else stood on the platform, I stepped inside. The first thing I noticed were the passengers. Dozens of them sat in rows, motionless, their faces pale, their eyes glazed as though they weren't really alive. None of them looked at me. Not once. I walked slowly through the aisle, waiting for someone to blink, to breathe, to move. But they didn't. The air smelled of dust and iron, heavy and suffocating. I thought about turning back. That's when the doors shut behind me. A voice crackled over the intercom, low, cold, almost a whisper. All aboard. No one ever gets off this train. My blood froze. The engine roared, and with a violent jolt, the train lurched forward. Outside, the city vanished into darkness. The windows showed only endless black, as though we weren't moving through land, but through nothingness itself. I sat down, heart hammering, and that's when I noticed the watch on my wrist. The hands spun wildly before freezing. 2:33. I tried to steady my breath, but then the whispers began. Soft at first, then louder, rising from the rows of passengers. Their lips never moved, but their voices filled the cabin. Words I couldn't understand. A language that scratched at the inside of my skull. I pressed my palms to my ears, but it didn't help. The whispers weren't coming from outside. They were inside my head. I stumbled into the next carriage, desperate to escape. But the scene repeated itself. More passengers, more lifeless faces, all staring forward, unmoving. At the far end stood the conductor, tall, thin. His uniform was spotless, though his face was hidden beneath the brim of his cap. Slowly, his head tilted toward me, and in a voice that seemed to echo from everywhere at once, he said, "You shouldn't be here." My legs trembled. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. The conductor stepped closer, his shoes clanging against the metal floor. Behind me, the passengers began to stir. Not all at once, just small movements, a twitch of a hand, a shiver of a shoulder. Then, their heads turned, one by one, until every single one of them was staring at me, their eyes hollow, their mouths stretching open wider and wider. I ran. I didn't care where, I just ran. Carriage after carriage, but each one looked the same. The same passengers, the same faces, as though I was running in circles. My chest burned, my breath shallow. And then finally, I found it, an empty compartment. I slammed the door shut and collapsed against the wall. The whispers had stopped. For the first time since boarding, there was silence. But it didn't last. Slowly, the lights flickered. The air grew colder, and across from me, in the reflection of the dark window, I saw something, a figure standing just behind my shoulder. I spun around. Nothing. But when I looked back at the glass, it was still there, closer this time. Its face stretched into a grin that didn't belong to anything human. The train screeched, throwing me forward. I crawled to the window, desperate to see where we were. But outside there was nothing. Not tracks, not land. just an endless void, as if the train was suspended between worlds. My watch ticked once, then froze again. 2:33. The intercom hissed. The conductor's voice returned. Next stop. Nowhere. The compartment door creaked open. I pressed myself against the wall, shaking as the conductor stepped inside. His face was still hidden, but I could feel his eyes burning into me. He leaned forward, his voice like a blade against my ear. No one ever gets off this train. I don't remember how long I stayed there, curled in that dark compartment, listening to the rhythmic clatter of the train, the endless darkness outside the window offering no clues as to where we were or where we were going. It felt like hours, but it might have been seconds. Time had ceased to exist. Then, as abruptly as it started, the train slowed to a halt. The doors slid open and a voice, not the conductor's, whispered, "Get off now." I hesitated, fear warring with the sudden, inexplicable urge to escape the train. Then, steeling myself, I pushed past the conductor and stumbled onto the platform. It was still night, but the sky was lighter now, the faintest hint of dawn breaking through the darkness. As I turned to go, I glanced back at the train. Its lights were dimming, the windows becoming dark, vacant eyes staring back at me. Then, with a final hiss of steam, it disappeared into the mist, swallowed by the darkness as if it had never been there at all. I walked away, shaken, my mind struggling to comprehend what I had experienced. The station was gone, vanished without a trace. The street was empty, silent. And as the first rays of sunlight touched my skin, I realized I wasn't alone. There, etched onto the pavement, was a black train ticket. It was singed at the edges, and the words branded into it burned into my memory. One way. Now, whenever I hear a train whistle in the night, a chill runs down my spine. And I remember the passengers with their vacant eyes and the conductor's chilling words. The train that should never have been there. The train that shouldn't exist. The train to nowhere. It's a story that happened to a friend of mine. We were sitting in a dimly lit bar, the worn wooden table littered with empty beer bottles, each one a silent witness to our college escapades. Mark was never one for sharing personal stories. It was as if he carried a lockbox in his chest, keeping his most intimate thoughts and experiences safe and sound within. So when he began speaking, his voice unusually low, I knew the story that unfolded before me was more than just a tale. It was a piece of him, carefully extracted and placed on the table between us. He told me about the train station, not in the town where we went to school, but in a city miles away, a place he visited during a solo backpacking trip. The station, he said, appeared as if it had been dropped into the city from another era. Its very existence a contradiction to the modern world we inhabit. He described the strange compulsion he felt to board the train, the eerie calm he experienced despite the conductor's ominous warning. As he spoke, the image of the train became clearer in my mind. I saw it puffing along the tracks, not belching smoke, but exhaling steam from nostrils that were too large for any engine I'd seen. In the carriage, there were no seats, only rows upon rows of coffins. Mark did not need to tell me that the coffins were filled with people. I could see their pale faces, their eyes blank, staring forward into the abyss. He told me about the passengers, how they were dressed in clothes that defied categorization, some in clothing that looked centuries old, others in attire that seemed like a bizarre mashup of different eras. And then there was the conductor, always present, yet never fully visible, his face forever shrouded in shadow. Mark's story was unlike anything I'd heard. It wasn't a simple ghost story. There was something deeper, darker, lurking beneath the surface. It was the kind of story that stayed with you, worming its way into your thoughts long after it was told. So when the next morning I woke up in our shared apartment to the sound of a train whistle, I wasn't alarmed. It was a sound that featured regularly in my dreams. What was unusual was that Mark was wide awake, his eyes dark circles under his skin. "Did you sleep at all?" I asked, concerned. Mark shook his head, his gaze fixed on some unseen point beyond the window. This was the Mark I knew, stoic, resolute, finding comfort in the tangible. To see him shaken like this was unnerving. And then it hit me. The same train he'd described, the one from his story. It had been in my dream, too. Friends sometimes share similar dreams, and sometimes those dreams become precognitive. But this was different. There was a palpable energy between us, a connection that transcended the realm of coincidence. Mark looked up, his eyes pleading. "What do we do?" he asked. I knew what he was really asking. But sometimes, when the wind is just right, I can still hear the whistle in the night. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content.